Serious, what paranormal experience have you had? This may very well be my sad projection as a child. But my father was killed in a car crash. His very jealous friend hit him and delayed calling for help. He made a pass on my mom 3 days after. My family was devastated. I'd lie awake at night and ask my dad to come back. On this particular night, I was sleeping on the couch because my dad sometimes fell asleep there and I missed him. I was trying to be quiet while hiccup sobbing that I missed dad. I felt someone stroking my hair and assumed it was my mom who woke up to comfort me. I didn't want to look at her because I was ashamed and she just kept stroking my hair. When I finally turned to look up because I got my tears in check, no one was there. I went to my parents' bedroom and my mom is snoring like a rhino. It wasn't harmful but it was a different experience. Pretty sure my cat haunts my room. I have 2 other cats. But since my dog sleeps with me they don't come in my room when he's in there. I hear little kitty sneezes close by when I'm in there. Always check for the other cats and usually end up finding them downstairs or on the back deck. It feels like something small jumps up on my bed and lays against my back or on my feet pretty often. I also get that little shaken sound that happens when a cat is scratching itself vigorously. My dog usually reacts to these before I even notice them. He will sit up and get very interested in the spot where I eventually hear the sound. Or if I get the feeling of something jumping up onto the bed his eyes start on the floor and follow to the spot it feels like it happens. May just be that I miss him and have those phantom feeling sounds occurring though. It's very comforting to feel like he's still with me. I had him for most of my life until last year. I have quite a bit. But this one was the time I actually saw something. I once heard some bumping in the corner of my room. And I had to be up in like 6 hours. I've never minded cohabitating with spirits but they've gotta respect the fact I need ducking rest. I said out loud, please stop making noise. I'm trying to sleep. After that, I saw a long black shadow snake up my armoire and nest in the corner on the top of it. I moved to the couch. My now deceased grandfather was known to have paranormal experiences related to him in his life. Once when I was around 10 years old I stayed one night at his house. Grandmother had already passed away so he was living alone. Before I went to bed that night I went to kitchen to wash my hands. As I'm washing my hand in the sink suddenly I see the shadow of a giant man is in front of me on the wall. I turned around and no one was behind me. It couldn't be my shadow as the lamp was on top of me and my shadow was on the ground. Never have felt any kind of fear like that in my life. I frantically escape the kitchen and see that grandfather is sitting calmly on the ground watching TV. Edit. Deleted an extra 2. Lying on my couch in my living room. And from there I can look down a 20-foot hallway and see my mom in bed reading. Door half open. I'm looking down and her door slams so violently that it shook the house kinda violent. She immediately comes sprinting out in a rage, as she often does, screaming at me for slamming her door when she was trying to relax. The scariest aspect was that I saw her in bed, 10 feet away from the door. My dog passed 3 weeks ago. This morning I was laying in bed because I awoke 30 minutes before my alarm and I was just thinking about stuff when I heard a small bark outside my door. My dog would always bark whenever he wanted to come back inside. I just started crying because I didn't know what to think. This one still boggles my mind to this day. When I was a kid, my dog slept in my room every night. I have 2 siblings so everyone in the house slept with their rooms doors closed. One morning my dog woke me up, probably at around 4 to 5 AM, by scratching on the door to go out. Just as I got up, the door opened. Dog went out. And door closed again. I stepped out into the hallway to see who opened for my dog but nobody was there. I checked my siblings and my parents' rooms and they were all fast asleep. My room is the first in the hallway. So I would have definitely seen anyone who opened my door. Asked my family later on and they just looked really spooked and asked if I didn't just imagine it all. Edit. Grammar. I was sitting on a recliner in my living room at 3 AM watching a horror movie. I was covered in a soft blue sheet which laid pretty flat because I was pointing my toes forward. Suddenly, my dog's tail starts to rise from underneath the blanket, which creates a sort of tent at the edge of the recliner. I say to my dog, "What are you doing there, weirdo?" I don't let them near recliners because a puppy had clipped his ear near one and I didn't want a repeat, and I lean over to look at him. I look over the edge of the recliner and suddenly the sheet drops flat back to my body. My dog is across the room, sleeping quietly with my other dog. I calmly turn off the TV, go to my room and sleep. One time when I was like 6, I was living with my parents and my grandma in a trailer park in Florida. So the bathroom was right across the hall from my parents' room. And the hallway was kinda narrow on account of it being a trailer. So, one day when no one was home I had to go to the bathroom. Normally, I close the door out of common courtesy. But since no one was home, I left it wide open. My parents' bed was facing so the foot was in the center of the room, with the head at the opposite end of the room as I was in the bathroom. If that makes sense. So I'm chilling on the toilet looking at a shampoo bottle or something, when all of a sudden a black dress outlining a female body with no figure in the dress rose up behind my parents' bed, hovered there for a second, and proceeded to float behind my parents' door. A few seconds of that was horrifying, because it looked like the black dress was flying right at me. I was so shook that I immediately finished my business in the bathroom and checked behind the door, literally ready to beat the shit out of a ducking demon. But I checked behind the door, and nothing. It was the weirdest, trippiest shit I've ever seen. And I still question to this day whether or not it was real or just the work of an overly active imagination. But I'm not falsely remembering things, because I was legitimately horrified by the dress, and was about to beat some ass. All I can say is now I always keep the door closed when going to the bathroom. Used to live in what used to be 3 very old farm cottages knocked through into one large house. Because of this, the layout was very unusual, but it was a pretty big house. We would regularly hear the sound of footsteps directly above the kitchen. Not just random thumping but very deliberate, striding footsteps as if someone wearing heavy boots was walking from one end of the room to the other. This wouldn't have been exceptionally odd, apart from the fact that there was no longer a room above the kitchen. The floor of what would have been the first floor had been removed, and so we had a kitchen with ridiculously high ceilings, like 15 feet, if not higher. I couldn't even reach the ceiling with a fully outstretched broom mop. My dad could just reach. Yet later at night, perhaps because it was typically quieter then, you would often hear the unmistakable thud, thud, thud as someone walked across the floor that no longer existed. I have a lifetime of experiences. I should really write them down sometime. Anyway, the first experience I can remember clearly was when I was little. I liked to sleep on the floor of my parents' bedroom because I felt like a hobbit. I woke up late in the morning. I want to say maybe 11 AM. And I looked over at the foot of their bed and saw my father's feet. Could hear him snoring away, and the bed shift as he moved around a bit. Me, being the wonderful daughter I was, sat up very quickly and yelled. But there was no one in the bed. There was still an indent of a body, but no one in the room. For some reason my mind was like, go to the basement. And I started sprinting down 2 flights of stairs. When I got to the landing in the basement I had another moment of panic because I have always hated the basement. It was terrifying to me. So I stood on the stairs too scared to move, and I started calling for my mother, whose shadow I could see in the basement suite under the door. No answer. I ended up getting all of my courage to spring back to the main floor, to find no one was home. Even now I get kind of uneasy thinking about it. Every night, just before I go to sleep, I'll watch a couple YouTube videos, peruse Reddit, then set my phone's alarm and put it on the nightstand next to my bed. Well, 2 weeks ago, I woke up late for work from my wife's alarm instead of mine. My phone was missing, and I knew I had put it next to me like I always had. She called it and somehow My phone was on the other side of the house on a shelf in a closed closet. It was super creepy because I have never walked, as far as I know. So, somehow my phone was transported from my nightstand, across the house, and into a closed closet. The whole thing still baffles me. I posted about this experience before, so I will copy the story here. When I was in elementary school, I shared a queen-size bed with my older sister and our family dog, a mutt that looked like a short-haired lassie, would sleep at the foot of our bed every night. When I was about 6 years old, I woke up one night around midnight and saw a dark figure standing at the foot of the bed. The figure was entirely in black without any eyes or a face. I tried to wake my sister up, but she rolled over to go back to sleep. My sister must have accidentally kicked the dog, because the dog woke up and raised her head and started growling at the figure at the foot of the bed. The growling then woke my sister up and she saw the figure and started screaming. When my parents came into the room and turned the light on, nothing was there. To this day, both my sister and I are adamant that we saw a ghost or other demon in our room. We know we aren't crazy because the dog saw it too. I'm still convinced the house I grew up in was haunted. When I was younger I was getting ready for bed when I got that feeling someone was watching me. I turned around to the door only to see a face leaning down from the top right corner of my door and quickly disappear. It looked like a middle-aged woman and it really creeped me out. The next day I woke up with lipstick marks on my door. I live with 2 older brothers and my mom. I definitely didn't tell them about the ghost so none of them would have kissed my door for no reason. Along with strange voices super late at night that sounded like they were calling your name, which both my brothers experienced as well. When we moved out and tried to sell the house, it mysteriously burned to the ground. The fire dept. Found no signs of someone burning down the house. Funny story, the next house I moved into only my room caught on fire. I'm convinced that I'm being followed by this ghost who has a fiery passion for me. Mine's quick and simple. I always believed in some type of after and heard many stories of people who aren't bulleters experiencing something. I was in my garage talking to my girlfriend who was standing in the doorway entering the house. About 10 to 15 feet behind her was our downstairs living room that has a sliding glass door and stairs going to the second level. Her brother walks in with a little girl with blonde hair following him. We all have small kids, but I know all the friends and playmates they have and didn't recognize her. I inquired to my GF as to who the duck was that little girl. She goes and checks it out and he comes down with a big grin. He's known to see spirits and I believe him without a doubt because the guy loves to talk to me about ducking anything. However, he doesn't bring up his gift. He just doesn't talk about it. In a way, he says that there's a little blonde hair girl who lives at the house. She's always around. Sorry for the formatting. I'm on my cell. So a year later my GF has my son premature and we end up staying in the hospital for a while. Her brother stays at the house and tells us that Emily is really sad and he can tell she's nervous and wondering why we aren't home. My newborn gets better and we head home and walk in and you can just feel this heaviness just vanish, followed by a very happy feeling. So in short, I have 5 kids total. 4 are biologically mine and of this world and the 5th is Emily and she's by far my best behaved. My 1 and 3-year-old will be very hyper running around and I have to announce to them that it's time for bed for everybody. They instantly crash. She's a good kid. I don't want to open any doors so I'm not looking into the history. Sorry for any errors. Multiple in my home. I've seen a ghost woman floating in front of my door with open arms, welcoming feeling, but I said I'm too tired for this, sheet rolled over then fell asleep. I was in the kitchen home alone. Dogs beside me. Door across the room slowly opens and I could hear the knob turning. Then it slammed shut. I was in the bathroom doing the do. Stared into space and I kinda gazed at the dryer. The dryer door slowly swung open. In the kitchen again. Little sister is the only one home. Dogs next to me again. I saw my sister go into the bathroom. Food is done so I call her to come eat. Then I hear her in the room behind the kitchen wall. I ask if she went to the bathroom. She says no. Random flashes of light, like a camera flash but at times really fast, in the corner of my room. No one in the backyard. No one in the hallway. The TV did flash, one in living room, but not like a camera. I still think about this sometimes and remind myself it was just my imagination. I was going through a rough time a few years ago and I was asleep one night and dreaming that I was laying in my bed crying and my mom was sitting next to me rubbing my back telling me everything was going to be okay. It was so real. So real that in my dream I remembered that my mom had died several years earlier and I woke up but I could still feel someone rubbing my back. I was home alone. I'm a grown man. And I was scared shitless. I couldn't move, I was so scared, so I just laid there until the sun came up and jumped out of bed. I'm not a big believer in spirits, but that makes me want to believe she was there that night. I'm fairly certain this was just hypnagogic hallucinations, but it's more fun to think it was paranormal. I woke up around 4:30 am and had just snapped out of a fairly vivid dream. I looked over at my bedside and noticed there was a dog standing there. I do not own a dog. My eyes started to adjust in the darkness and I realized it was my parents' deceased Greyhound. I remember moving forward to confirm he was actually there and he stepped back a bit reacting to me. Then slowly he started to fade away as I blinked and rubbed my eyes. Kind of creeped me out, but it was also a little comforting. Like he was checking up on me. I had a terrible dream and woke up screaming. I ran to turn on the light in my room because I still felt terrified. I hit the light switch and the light did that bright flash thing and burned out, so I panicked and opened my bedroom door. There were two dark silhouettes and one reached out to touch me. I woke up again. Turns out that was a dream too. I went to turn my light on a little less panicked this time and it was burnt out. I ran upstairs and made my roommate change my light bulb because every time I tried to go in there I instantly got goosebumps and that not alone feeling. I had an ex-girlfriend whose brother died of cancer in the house. One day we were laying down in her bed after having sex. Just having pillow talk. And we were on our sides facing each other. We both kinda dozed off to sleep. But I couldn't sleep because she was breathing heavy onto the pillow. So I said, "Why are you breathing so heavily?" Assuming her breath was being blocked by the pillow and I had to move it. She looked at me and went, "I thought that was you." And my heart dropped. I looked around for the cat and it wasn't there. Her reply after it all? I just try not to think about stuff like this when it happens. My old townhouse had a lot of activity. One time I was in the shower, I left the door open. I was home alone. And also because I was waiting for my ex to get home since it was date night. Well, I heard someone run up the stairs. And I said my ex's name. I got no response and I hear the thing run down the stairs. I get out of the shower. And I hear the door open and I call out my ex's name and he's like, "I just got home." I was pretty freaked out. One night a few years ago, a friend showed up at our house rather drunk and asked if he could crash in our spare bedroom rather than drive home. Of course. We made the bed for him and let him stay. After all, friends don't let friends drive drunk. My husband and I went to bed shortly after. In the early hours of the morning I heard movement and woke up enough to turn my head and look towards our bedroom door. I saw the silhouette of a tall, thin figure standing there. Our friend is tall and thin. So I assumed it was him trying to find the bathroom and rolled back over. At this point, my husband asked me if I heard footsteps. Yeah, it was friend. He stayed the night. Remember? Honey. Friend left a few hours ago. We both shot out of bed and searched the house. There was no sign of anyone. The windows were all shut. And the doors were locked from the inside. I used to live in the basement of a house that was split up like a duplex. You always had a feeling of being watched. Right outside my front door there was the entrance to the laundry room. I especially hated going in there. It always felt creepy. One night I was coming home, I opened the door from outside to come in. There was a stairway once you came in which lead up to the main floor apartment and the other staircase leading down to my door and the laundry room door. It was winter time, so it was somewhat dark around 6 or 7 p.m. The light inside my apartment was on and you could see the light coming through from the crack under the door. When I came home this night, I could see the light coming through and I could also see two dark shadows. As if someone was standing at my front door. I looked down and yelled hello, but nobody answered. Just after that, I saw the feet legs walk into the laundry room. I flipped the light on in the stairwell and saw nothing. Went down to the laundry room and still nobody there. There was no mistaking it though. Someone was standing at my front door.